really does not matter. And I'm recording.
All righty. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Darlene Swistock from the Buckles office, and I would like to thank you for attending today's training. As you know, the Buckles strategic plan calls for centralized training for mandated services, which is our ILS, eContent, and delivery. And Tina has been hosting these classes for us. I think this is our fourth class on the CPC training, and we thank Tina for her great sharing of information. We will be sharing the recording and the slides after the class. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the, we're using the Q&A or the chat box?
The chat box.
Feel free to type them in the chat box. Tina will keep an eye on those. If you would like to ask questions at the end, you can unmute yourself and ask the questions. And I think that's it for the moment. So I'm going to hand it off to Tina Murray.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today to talk about Cost-Per-Circ. So what we're going to do a little bit is I'm going to show you the OverDrive screen. We're going to go through things in Marketplace. And then at the end, we're going to recap with slides. The slides will be sent to you as well as the recording. So let me share my screen. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So this is what your OverDrive Marketplace looks like when you log in. Over here on the upper left-hand corner under Shop, you'll see one copy, one user, and metered access. If you click on the little down arrow, you will come to Cost-Per-Circ. So Cost-Per-Circ, or CPC, is a model that has been around for a long time, but Buckles has just had access to for I think less than a year now, and it stands for Cost-Per-Circ. It's similar to the Hoopla model where you pay per checkout. So unlike Hoopla, where you have a set collection of items available, you don't get to pick and choose. You get to pick and choose in OverDrive which titles you want to make available to your patrons. And so that gives you a little bit more granularity, but it also means that there's more work to do for the staff because you're the ones that are picking and choosing. With Cost-Per-Circ, you can set your monthly budget. So up at the top, you'll see CPC monthly budget. If you click on that, you'll see Manage Budget. You can determine your budget by format. So they break it out to ebooks and audiobooks. And you can see your target monthly budget, how much you want to spend per format, and then your available budget, which is how much of that money you have left. And then down at the bottom, you'll see your billing account and your internal purchase order ID. I greatly suggest using your purchase order ID just to separate it out from your regular orders. Cost-Per-Circ will not show up in your purchase orders, and it is billed generally at the end of the month or the first few days of the following month, depending on how the days of the week fall. And so I find it very useful for my own record keeping and invoicing to be able to see which month or what. Is this for a book club? Is it for an event? What am I doing the Cost-Per-Circ for this particular month for? And I find that very helpful. You can change these amounts over the course of the month. So I usually start out even at 200 and 200, and then over the course of the month, if I see I'm spending more money on audiobooks or more money on ebooks, I can change those amounts as I see fit. Cost-Per-Circ is good for a lot of different things. It's good for holds management is what we here predominantly use it for, but it's also good for book clubs. In this instance, the One Book Buckles, you can add the ebook of Ma and Me to your collection and have that available for anybody who wants to check it out. We will talk about how you can remove that and how you can set dates for that in a minute. But it's really good for book clubs, unique or individual titles, summer reading, recommended titles, or if you're having a particular event or program and you want to highlight a certain number of authors or titles, you can do that there as well. Your budget will reset on the first of the month. So, and if you have anything still in your collection, it will start pulling against that budget. So if you want to spend a lower amount for the next month, or you don't want to spend any money the next month, you want to reset your budget in the monthly budget calculator before the end of the month. It will not affect what you have already spent. It will just keep you from spending any more money going forward.
Quick question.
Sure.
Do we so I have literally marked it on my calendar, and every first or second, whichever day is working, I go and I change the purchase ID and reset the monthly amounts to, I start with 100. So what if I forget to do that? What will happen? Will it stop using? So I like for if it was still September, so the money will stop being used for September, and if I have not given it a purchase ID, what happens for October then?
Sure. So nothing really happens. So in terms of the budget, so if you have, say you have $50 and $50, and then when October 1st hits, if you haven't made any changes to that for October, it's going to reset and you're going to have $50 and $50 again. So if you know every month you want to spend $100, you can set your budget once and then never touch it again, because you only have to touch it again if you want to move it up or move it down. For the purchase order ID, as long as you change it before the end of the month, then that's what will be on the invoice date. So I try to make sure I change it at some point in the first week of the month, but you don't have to do it like on the first. If you forget to change it and 3 months from now, you may notice that you have 3 different invoices that all say October or September, okay. But there are other pieces. I mean, the dates on the invoice, you'll be able to see the titles are different. So it's not like you're going to, I mean, you might have a minor confusion of why do I have 3 invoices? It's September, okay. But the dates will be different and the totals will be different. That but is the downside.
What will be the amount if I end September with 200, but I want to start October with 100 and I forget? So what will my
then it will start with 200. It will start with whatever you had previously. So right now I have 225 and 175. Say for November, I want to go down to 100 and 175. If I don't make that change before November 1st, it will start November with whatever I have with the 225 and the 175. You have to make the change. Now, on November 2nd, you're probably not going to spend all of your money on November 1st, right? So like you can go in on November 1st and change those totals down to what you want them to be, but you will probably already have spent a little bit of money against that total on November 1st. Because see, what is the day? Today is the 15th. I still have $72 and $113 left in my budget. So again, I don't keep a ton of things active at one time, which you'll see in a minute. But if you catch it on the first couple of days, chances are, unless you have the whole collection selected, you're not going to spend a ton of money all at once.
Right. And in the help section, somewhere I read that I can control how much money every patron can be budgeted to. I could not find that setting.
So theoretically, that is an option that OverDrive has access, that you can do with OverDrive. It is controlled by the consortium. It is not something that we as individual Advantage members can adjust. It has to do with the number of Cost-Per-Circ items that a person can check out. That is set by the consortium, and it's per month. I believe it's set to 5. I will make myself a note to figure that out and get back to you. But the individual Advantage libraries don't have the ability to change that number.
Okay. So that means a patron cannot spend more than 5. That's
Well, they can't check out more than 5 Cost-Per-Circ titles
okay.
in a month, I believe.
Okay.
And I will, when we're done, I'll check. I'm pretty sure I have asked that question before and I got an answer. I just don't remember what the answer is.
That's okay. Thank you.
But because I think I saw the same thing and I was like, wait, I can limit how much stuff my patrons can check out, because most patrons are going to do a couple, but everybody has that one patron that's going to check out 400 things and spend all of your money for you. But it is limited is the answer. It's just not a limit that we individually can change. If that is something that people feel strongly about, if they want to let eBuckles know that they think that the limit should go up or should go down, we can talk to the group and then to Buckles about it. But that is something that would affect the whole group as opposed to just your individual library.
Okay, 5 sounds a good number, I think.
I think that's what it is, but like I said, I'll double check and let you, and if I can easily find it when we're done, I'll let everybody know. If I can't, I'll get back to you afterwards.
Thank you so much.
No worries. All right. So you search for Cost-Per-Circ titles the same way you search for regular one copy, one user and metered access titles. You can search by title, author, subject in the regular search bar at the top of the screen. You will also see a selection of materials. They have the little carousels. We have ebook bestsellers, audiobook bestsellers, club picks, all sorts of different things. I'm not sure I have ever used the carousels. That's not how we purchase our materials, but you can certainly just click on a title and find it. The bread and butter for this, though, is the advanced search. This is how you can pin and save searches, which is going to save you a lot of time if you're in here a lot doing the same sort of things. You can get much more detailed in your search. So the 2 searches that I recommend if you're going to be using Cost-Per-Circ on a regular basis or even a semi-regular basis is to keep a list of the things that you have in your collection and then also the Cost-Per-Circ titles that your patrons have on hold. You do not need to frantically write this down. This information is in the slides that Tarlene will be sending you after the fact. But this is your advanced search screen. You have a ton of options here. But we're going to go all the way down to the bottom. So to find the things that are in your collection, you're going to click on holdings, and then you're going to scroll down, and you're going to do in collection advantage owned as CPC. Now, if I just want to run the search, I can hit search. And if I want to save this search, I hit save. I'm going to give my search a name. I can give it a description. And then this pin search to menu is the box that you want to check off, and that will put the little pin right on your main Cost-Per-Circ page, which we'll see when we go back. So that's how you do your in collection, the items that you currently have available to your patrons as Cost-Per-Circ. If you want to know what is currently on hold that you don't own as Cost-Per-Circ, you're going to go back to the holdings, and instead of in collection, we're going to go down till we find not in collection, and then we're going to choose not an advantage collection. And under advantage holds, we're going to do a minimum. I do 1 because I like to see everything that my patrons have on hold, but you can change that number to whatever your threshold is or whatever you would prefer. Again, you can hit search or save. Also, down here at the bottom under descending, this is going to be your default sort. So you can decide how you want things sorted, whether it's popularity, holds ratio, whatever item you want the default sort to be, you can set that there. You can change the sort once you see your results, but if you know you always want to see it by title or you always want to see it by holds ratio, you can set that at the time that you do your save your search, and then it will just save you another step as you go along. I'm going to go back. So once you save a search, it's going to show up here on the left, and you'll see my CPC in collection and CPC on hold. Again, you can name those whatever makes sense to you. So we're going to look at what my patrons currently have on hold. So this will show you the title, the general bibliographic information in terms of the language and the street date. You will see how much it will cost per checkout. So this $5.50 means that every time one of my patrons checks out the title, it will cost us $5.50. Be prepared to be moderately horrified at how much money this all costs. Because as we scroll down, you can see we have $9.50. We have $5.45. Your best sellers, the very popular titles, are going to be generally around $5.50 for an ebook and somewhere between $7 and $10 for an audiobook. I have seen the prices starting to creep up, and we have a couple that have been over $10, which I generally just find moderately horrifying. When you're looking at titles, you can look at the holds ratio for the consortium, which is the top line, and advantage is the bottom line. All of the decision making that you're going to make about whether you should buy something or not buy something is going to be based on your particular library and what your goals are. Do you want to clear all your holds? Do you want to have things available for a particular purpose, such as a book club or an event? It's all very dependent upon you and your budget in terms of what your decision making is. Generally, I look at anything that has a consortium ratio of more than 5. So we'll see if I have anything. So here we have Build the Life You Want. It has a holds ratio of 5. Now my hold is currently suspended, but if it was active, I would hit Add Cost-Per-Circ title. So this is how I add titles to my collection. It's going to be added to your collection within 24 hours. They say that every time, and you're going to get a little green box that says 24 hours. It is, in my experience, never 24 hours. It's usually like 3 hours or 4 hours. So this is how you would add. All you would do is you would say yes and hit confirm. Now, the schedule when to revoke button, if you know when you want that particular title to no longer be available to your patrons, either it's a book club and the book club window has ended. And for the case of Ma and Me, I have it set to end at the end of October. You can schedule when to revoke, you pick your date, and then that title will automatically become unavailable as Cost-Per-Circ on the date that you pick. And then you would just say confirm, and then it will be added to your collection. If you don't want to set a revoke date, you do not have to. Or if you add it and then realize later on that you wanted to set a revoke date, I'll show you how to do that as well. You can do that later on. So if you add a title and you're like, oh no, I wanted it to end on Halloween, you can do that later. We also use that for our summer reading titles. We set them to end after Labor Day, so it makes it easier. We're not all remembering that when we have to do particular things. All right. And then to remove items, we're going to go back to Shop Cost-Per-Circ, and I'm going to look at the items that are currently in my collection that I currently have available to my patrons as Cost-Per-Circ. You'll see here the little this title is weeded in the shared collection. Sometimes items get weeded, but you still have holds on them, and that's what that little weeded means. So we'll see here, again, these are the items I have. So my patron has not checked this out yet. So what I do is I scroll down and I look for anything that no longer has an active hold. So in this, again, the Build the Life You Want, my patron had checked it out. You can see when they checked it out, how many times in the past year, and how many times total they've checked this title out. I use that information as well when I'm selecting. If I have a title that I've had 4 or 5 checkouts on, I may not want to do Cost-Per-Circ. It may then make more sense for me to buy a title, buy a copy as one copy, one user, or metered access. So I use that information as well when I'm selecting. But in this case, I'm going to say revoke because I don't need this title available anymore because I've worked through my holds. this is where if you realized that you wanted to schedule something and you didn't, you can just go into your list, hit revoke, and then here say schedule. And then again, you would pick the date that you wanted to end it and then hit update. In this instance, we want to remove it altogether. So we're just going to say revoke. And again, you'll see changes will go into effect within 24 hours. And so you can just make your way through your list. Until you revoke a title, it will still be available for your patrons to find and to check out. And I just work my way down through the list and revoke everything that my patrons no longer have. Now you may see, let's see if we have any orphan titles. There we go. So sometimes you'll notice here under holds, there are 3 rows, active, suspended, and ratio. On Cantorus, we have active and suspended. So when you see the 2 columns in holds instead of 3 columns in holds, generally that means that there are no active titles available. There's no copies currently available in one copy, one user, metered access. And it's what I called an orphaned title, and that it is just sort of hanging out. So lots of times I add those to try to get my patrons through the holds list, because otherwise they're just going to be waiting in perpetuity or until somebody adds another copy to the system. So I work through those to try to get my patrons through the holds list. But the key way to realize whether that's an orphan or not is to see the holds and see that it's only 2 columns instead of 3. So my patron has suspended their hold, so I'm going to revoke access to that. So really, that's the nuts and the bolts of the Cost-Per-Circ. You pick the titles that you want and you make them available. And when you are done with them, your patrons are done with them, your event has happened, your book club has happened, you revoke them and they're no longer available. So you can see here, this is the Ma and Me, which is the One Book Buckles. And I have it scheduled to revoke on 10/31. So if you schedule it to revoke, when you run this report of what titles do I have currently available, it will show you the revoke date. So you will already know, oh, that's scheduled to revoke. If you wanted to change the date, you simply click on this little box and you can either update the date or revoke it manually. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
This is a new lending model, but like I said, it's not a new process. I'm going to show you. So within here, so in Marketplace, if you hit support, on the right-hand side, you will see the smiling face of our account manager, Nick. If you ever have any questions, you get stuck, something strange is happening, you can reach out to Nick and he will either send you to the correct person or he will answer your question himself. We have Alicia Adams, who is our content librarian, and she works more with the curation, with other things. If you have an actual content question, if you want some lists or you need help developing your collection, that would be Alicia. And Bart is our product specialist. He is our tech guy. So if there's something happening with an API or something really not authenticating, that would be Bart. But generally, the easiest thing to do is go to Nick, and Nick will direct your question to the appropriate person if he can't answer it. Also under support, if you go down to help and resources, they have pretty good help at OverDrive, in my opinion, certainly better than some other vendors that we use. And if you go to OverDrive Resource Center, they have a bunch of pre-recorded trainings, help desk, and other information here as well. So this will be is really helpful. They also have a lot of really good marketing materials and pre-done social media posts. So if you're trying to market your collection to your patrons, this is a really good place to go to find information. So they have webinars, handouts, quick training resources, and a lot of different things here. So I really want to make sure that everybody knows about these resources, because again, I did not know about them for a while. And then I was like, wait, why am I recreating the wheel when you can do all of this for me? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And then we're going to run through the slides real quick, which really are, again, a recap of what we've done already. And you will get these from Darlene. Okay. Yep. Come on, screen. There we go. Okay. So Cost-Per-Circ is CPC. So this is one of our lending models. One copy, one user is the OCOU, and NA stands for metered access. One of the heads up with metered access, there is a option that's 100 checkouts. So you're basically paying for 100 checkouts. That is a shared format. So Cost-Per-Circ, when you do Cost-Per-Circ, that is only available to your Libraries Advantage patrons. So when I buy a Cost-Per-Circ title, it is only available to Glen Ridge. It is not available to any of the other members of Buckles. If I buy a metered access 100 checkout title, however, those 100 checkouts are available to anybody in Buckles, not just Glen Ridge. So it's a great format to be able to blast through checkouts as quickly as possible. But again, just remember that those are not just for your patrons. You are sharing those 100 checkouts with the whole consortium. There has been some confusion about that because that is a relatively new model for OverDrive. So I just like to make sure everybody realizes that those are shared and not just for you. You can set a monthly budget based on your formats and set your revocation dates. It's good for book clubs, holds management, unique or individual titles, summer reading, or recommended titles. So if a patron wants you to buy this random mystery from, 1997, and you don't want to spend $80 on this random mystery from 1997, but you can spend $5.50 and get that hold through. The patron's happy. You're happy that you don't have to spend way more money. It is sort of a win-win. Predominantly holds management is the main reason that people use Cost-Per-Circ. It is what we use it majority for. And it's a really good way to get those patrons who have you've got one hold on a title, but it's a high profile title, or it's not a high profile title, but you want your patron to not be waiting 400 years for this one book. You can get a lot of people through instead of just making them wait forever. Invoices are set at the end of the month. They do not show in your purchase orders list. They only show under your invoices list. And it will reset on the 1st of the month. You can search for titles on your normal parameters, title, author, subject, etc. The advanced search is where you can get more detail. You can search based on holdings or holds, subjects, all of the things that you might want. And it's also where you will do your saved searches and pin them to the menu. You will give it a name. You can give it a description if you want, and then you can pin the search to the menu. The pinned searches is not unique to Cost-Per-Circ. You can do this in one copy, one user, and metered access as well. So you can go to advanced search in the one copy, one user, and do exactly the same process. You hit advanced search, you just select your parameters, and then you save your search, give it a name, and click the pin box. So that can also be useful for you when you're buying regular content as well as Cost-Per-Circ. Again, I recommend doing an in collection and an on hold for your saved searches. Also, you can have as many of these as you want. So if you are regularly you want to see things that have 10 holds, or if you want to see things by a particular author and that's important to you, you can save as many searches as you would like based on your needs. To add titles, you simply search for a title or look for the in your saved search. You click on the Add CPC box, and then it's going to say that it's added within 24 hours. You can schedule when to revoke it if you choose, and then you simply say confirm. To remove the title, it's very similar in process. You hit on you go to your list of items in your collection, or you search for a title individually, you hit revoke. This is also where if you hadn't scheduled the revoke date, you can set it after the fact, and then you hit revoke. They really like to push this 24 hours, but again, regularly in practice, it's generally somewhere between 3 and 4 hours. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions after our speed round of Cost-Per-Circ?
I'm good with this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I am always available to answer any questions that you might have. Again, I am the director at the Glen Public Library and the co-chair of eBuckles. If there are ever any suggestions, and I was going to see if I could find the Cost-Per-Circ limit. Give me 1 second.
Okay. And maybe while you're taking a look, I'll just do my housekeeping items.
Go right ahead.
And then we'll just see if we have any questions. So if anybody does have any questions, I see there is one from Nick. If anyone has any other questions, please type it into the chat box, and Tina Marie will get to them before we wrap up. So I would like to thank all of you for attending, taking time out of your busy Friday the 13th to come to today's class. Many thanks to Tina Marie for presenting another great class with a lot of great information. If you have any questions, again, feel free to type them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask them. After this, the training session, I'll send you an email with an evaluation form. It's an anonymous Google form, so please provide your feedback. It also gives you a chance to let us know what topics you would like pertaining to this class and other topics. As Tina said, we will share the recording and her slides. That'll probably be early next week. We'll forward that. We'll also be sending you attendance certificates for today's class. So I think that's it. So back to you, Tina.
And I found it, which is very exciting. It is 3 audiobooks and 3 ebooks a month. So they can have up to 6 items as Cost-Per-Circ per month, but it's 3 and 3. That is, like I said, that is a changeable consortium-wide limit, but that is something that eBuckles would have to change and then go to the consortium with. But if that is something that you feel strongly about, please let us know. And for Nick, in order to get started, so if you already have an Advantage account, you have access to Cost-Per-Circ. You do not need Nick or anybody else to give you permission to use Cost-Per-Circ. You would just go to Marketplace, click on the little drop-down menu, go to Cost-Per-Circ, and set yourself a budget. I recommend when you're playing with it at the beginning, set yourself a $20 budget or a $50 budget and play with it a little bit just to get used to how it works. And then you don't have to, worry about, oh no, what's happening? Set it for $20 and just play around with it. If you do not have an Advantage account, then yes, you would need to reach out to Nick from OverDrive to get that information. I'm going to put his information in the chat just in case you don't have access to Marketplace. But it will also, I don't know if his is in the slides, but there is his information in the chat. He's very easy to work with, and he will get you up and running with Advantage if you are not already hooked up.
I think you do have the screenshot of OverDrive in your slides.
Oh yeah, I'm looking. It's in front of my face. I should do that. So he is there too. His number is in the slides. So if you don't worry, if you don't get to write it down from the chat, when you get the slides, it's the last page of the slides. It has my contact information as well as Nick's contact information.
You were just way too efficient.
Although this is incorrect, I have to update it. We used to have a different digital content librarian, Sheila, and she is actually on my slide deck as opposed to Alicia. So I will have to update that with Alicia's information.
Okay, so then I will wait for that. And then whenever you have the recording, we'll look to send that out like early next week. That would be great.
A quick question on how do we take the stats, the monthly stats? So I know that Buckles provides stats for the users, what they use from the consortium, but I have to get stats for my Advantage end. Will the CPC also appear in that now?
So with your statistics, so I honestly am not very sure about what the Buckles statistics cover because I have never used them. I run my own every month. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So normally under your circulation statistics, the cost per circ, the things against your advantage, those are all included. They do a standard, like just regular circulation. So if you go to Insights, you'll see your popular reports. Checkouts is the first one. I think I still have this set up. Yep, I have this set up from when I ran my September statistics. So you could do checkouts by, I have it set to format because that's how I do my statistics. Under branch, you just click in here and you would pick your library out of the branch to be able to see your library's statistics. You can do a lot of different limits. So by formats, languages, all different kinds of things. You could set a date period. And then the other important thing here is the lending model. So say you want to know at the end of the month how many cost per circ items were circulated. I would change this to title. And then under lending model, I'm going to choose cost per circ. And then I'm going to hit update and see if I did this correctly. And cross your digits. Yay! So we had 77. My mouse is not agreeing with me today. There we go. We had 77 checkouts for cost per circ titles in September for Glen Ridge. And you can see the titles and the number of checkouts. So my top ones were Besties Find Their Groove and Happiness Falls. And you can have this report run however you want. So instead of by title, I could do it by format. And this is how you would see sort of just your cost per circ. But if you remove this lending model, so it's all lending models, I'm showing you all checkouts. I can do it by title, but that gets a little hard to look at. So I'm going to change it back to format because this is my normal way of running my statistics. And I say update. This will show you that in September, Glen Ridge did 1,891 checkouts, and that's across all formats, all lending models, across the consortium, Advantage, Advantage Plus. And it will tell me how many of those were listen, read, Kindle, magazines, audiobooks, all of that sort of thing. So this is how I run my monthly statistics. I do not use the list from Buckles, but I'm going to assume that Buckles does this by branch instead of checkouts by format. They do checkouts by branch, and that's how you can see your individual library's statistics. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. OverDrive statistics are a whole nother session. The reporting can get a little interesting. They also have a really bad habit of changing their reporting and not telling anybody. So I would recommend playing around in here. We do some reporting training sessions during the year, but if you are ever needing a report, if somebody's asking you for a very specific report and you can't figure out how to do it, just reach out to Nick. They have different reporting options than we do. So sometimes there's a report that I can't run, something very detailed that usually happens like during budget time or at the end of the year where somebody wants some random list of statistics, and I will reach out to him and he's been able to do that for me before. Okay, but in terms of monthlies, this is how I run my monthly statistics.
Great, thanks.
I do the cost per circ sometimes just to see like what my average cost is. So it's like, okay, I spent $400 and I got 77 checkouts. I'm spending X amount per checkout. Like, I use that statistic sometimes as well.
Hey, Tina, Marie.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? And I'll apologize in advance if I don't sound, what's the word? Phrasing it properly. Is there a way to determine if, let's say, if you got bang for the buck when you purchase something, like with the checkouts, like do you have a number that you're looking for? Does that make
In
any
terms of
sense?
cost per circ or in general?
Maybe in both. Like, does it make any sense? You know how, like, I think back to the olden days when there's like a hard copy of a book, right? And somebody puts a patron request to buy it, so the library buys it, and maybe there's like 2 circs on it. Or, like maybe there's 10. Like,
Yeah.
what's considered a good value, maybe?
That's really, so one that's individual, and it's hard to tell. It really depends on format. And it's interesting when you look at like print versus electronic. Sometimes we're looking at like, oh, if it was $1 per circulation, like that's good. Or is it 50 cents per circulation? With your one copy, one user titles, you can do that easily. So you can look at it and you're like, okay, I spent, $95 for this audiobook, but I got 200 checkouts. The return on investment for ebooks and audiobooks, particularly for Cost-Per-Circ, is bad. Because you're paying $5.50 per circulation, or you're paying $9.50 per circulation. But when you're looking at that, like then it becomes again, it's back to your particular library's goals and objectives. If your goal is to get people off the waiting list as quickly as possible, then that $5.50 might be worth it. But it might not be worth it for if your goal is to just have a broad collection of materials, or when we're looking at print as well, everybody would freak out if we were spending $5.50 per checkout for print. That's not sustainable. There's a lot of debate that the price of eContent is not sustainable. And now that I'm starting to see things at $10 per checkout, or I saw an $11 ebook per checkout, then it's not. This is also where I think it's important for us to keep updated on our collection development policies and being able to determine what your ratio is. What is your holds ratio for electronic materials before you start looking at another copy? Is it 5-to-1, 10-to-1, 2-to-1? What is that number? And can you meet it? Because I can tell you that both in my previous consortium with eBuckles, with us at Glen Ridge, it's real when you say, okay, I want to keep it to a 5-to-1 or a 10-to-1. That can get expensive really quickly. So you want to make sure that you have the funds to meet your policy, or you have your policy written in a way where it gives you an out if you can't. And also set some parameters for if you want to set a max. We're not going to pay more than X amount of dollars for a title, or we're not going to pay more than X per checkout. So that way, when you're making decision-making processes about what to add, I can tell you I do not add ebooks that cost $11.49 per checkout. So everybody has different thresholds for that, though. But definitely the cost per checkout for eContent is a depressing statistic, and really does vary from library to library. And if you're looking at Advantage per consortium, because Cost-Per-Circ is good on an Advantage level, because lots of times you're talking about 1 checkout, 2 checkouts, or you have a specific event or program that you have budgeted money for, like for the One Book Buckles, or if you're summer reading or your book clubs, you can say, okay, we're budgeting, $60 for this book club, because that's what would cost me to buy 2 of the copies anyway. But when you're looking at that for consortium level, that is degrees of magnitude. So, then the consortium is looking at spending, $600 on one Cost-Per-Circ title, or things like that. So it's really this moving target that is fascinating and frustrating all at the same time.
It does seem crazy, like when you're talking about that, like $11 a checkout. I know the cost of print varies, but you're thinking like 2 circs and you've already bought the print version, right? If it's like $11 or something.
Although you usually have to get to about 8 circs before you're looking at the same one copy, one user metered access price, because you're usually somewhere, but it's either 26, 47 for like the metered, and then lots of times for the one copy, one user, you're looking in the 60s to 100s, depending on what it is. My personal favorite is there was the Paul McCartney lyrics set. It was a few years ago. It was like a 3-volume set. It was $350 for one metered access copy of the ebook. And I had hysteria and like called Nick and was like, what is happening?
Wow.
And we have patrons who kept requesting it under the, now it would be notify me tags. Previously it was recommended. And I was like, I will not be buying a $350 2-year license for this title. I am sorry.
Wow.
So the further down you go this rabbit hole, the more frustrated you will become with the pricing of eContent. That is the unfortunate side effect of getting into eContent.
We had the same situation with Hoopla, right? How it just it was good and bad. You know, it was nice that it was so popular, but it was a killer on the financial side.
And that's the downside to the Cost-Per-Circ. So I would recommend designating a certain amount of your monthly budget for eContent. That's what we do. I take $400 of my budget, which is about 40% of my eContent monthly budget, and I put that towards Cost-Per-Circ. And at the beginning, that may be a much smaller number as you're getting used to it. I said you throw $20 at it or $50 at it, just as you're getting used to it, to see how the process works, what it works for you, while you're figuring out what your goals are and what your, policies are going to be. And then you can go, okay, we want it to be this much and this much. I will warn you that it will take over your budget if you're not careful, and you're not always going to be able to buy everything you want to. But thank you so much, everybody, for bearing with us and listening to me yammer on at you about eContent for an hour. Like I said, my contact information is at the end of the slides that Darlene will be sending out. And we will, hopefully you will enjoy your foray into Cost-Per-Circ.
Oh, thanks for yammering, Tina Marie. Feel free anytime. Oh, thanks for a great class. Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.